Welcome to What the Fuck Do You Do? A show where we learn about various professions and what people actually do in their jobs. I'm your co host, Shrey Panda,
And I'm Travis Fox.
and today, the job we'll be talking about is an account executive. Our guest today is Diane, who is currently an account executive at a tech company in New York City. She has 5 years of experience working as an account executive and 2 years of experience in her current role. We're excited to have her.
So, to start, how would you describe what an account executive does?
Yeah, so an account executive, very plainly in the tech world, is sales. So you are likely working in a net new acquisition position, meaning you are going after a target audience, probably your company's target customers that don't work with your company, trying to get them to work with them in some sort of regard, by doing whether that might be like research on this company, and then you start reaching out to the right people and just trying to form that initial relationship. That is the basis, I think, of account executives. I think there's a lot of variations in the tech world, but that's definitely where my career started.
Gotcha. So, it's basically pitching and trying to get new companies to work with your current company.
Exactly. So it's very much sales. I think that in my particular role right now, it's actually a little bit less finding new business and working with current clients and growing them. So that kind of bleeds into more what I think people know as account management. But usually when you see the title account executive, it's net new sales and it's an acquisition role, and it's very much full sales cycle or full cycle selling. So you're doing the research, you're prospecting, you're making that first contact, and you take them all the way throughout the sales cycle to close. So hopefully them signing a contract with your company or whatever counts as like closing the business at wherever you work.
So, how do you know what companies to look for? Like, where do you even start?
Yeah, I think that really depends on obviously the company you're in and maybe that division. So for me right now, actually my role is a little bit more of an account management. So I'll talk about my previous role. I was selling a sales software. So knowing that it was geared towards salespeople, my job was to identify who is the top decision makers in the buying committee that are going to be evaluating sales. So in that particular role, it was chief revenue officers, VPs of sales. Sometimes it would be marketing. In the particular division I was in, I was working with startups, so small, medium businesses. So the way that we classified that was people that had growing sales teams that started at least 8 people. So the way that I would research it was what you would think: a lot of online, a lot of LinkedIn, just stalking people, cold outreach, trying to get any meetings with this buying committee and trying to start the sales cycle that way.
Yeah, when you actually like formulate the pitch, do you formulate a unique pitch to a particular company, or do you sort of create one pitch and then just blast everybody?
Yeah, I think when you're learning the role, you try to do the latter where you know the pitch and you're blasting people because it's a volume game. Sometimes with sales, especially when you're just starting your career, you just want to get practice. So you just want to get the message out there. You want to start pitching people. You're probably not going to be very good. But sales is one of those careers that you learn with exposure. It's not really taught in like a class. And I think once you're good at it, that's when you start doing the initial option you mentioned. So you're customizing that pitch based on the company's use case. You're deciding, does this company actually qualify for my software or whatever I'm selling? Or do we dequalify them? Maybe they're not a good fit. Maybe it's a unique use case that we haven't looked at before. And I think when you reach that level of selling, you're probably a little bit more intermediate or advanced in your career. And that's when you really start seeing success and you really start rapidly, the sales cycles get shorter because you know what you're doing. But I think definitely when you're first starting your career, you're just trying to pitch as much as you can and like fail really, really fast and fail a lot.
And for the pitches themselves, and when you meet with companies, are you doing like phone calls? Do you go to people's offices? What does that meeting actually look like?
Yeah, I've done a mix of both. Obviously, with 2020, it's all been on Zoom, like 100%. And it's always good to get some sort of FaceTime, even if it's virtual. Before it was a mix, I would say it's like 75% mix of Zoom calls and then 25% in person, whether you're going to take them out to like a lunch or meeting them in their office. I think you really reserve those in-person meetings for larger opportunities where you have to not schmooze the client, but it's a little bit more of like a high value client. You want to get FaceTime, you want to build that relationship first, buy them lunch. So I would reserve that for like larger opportunities that I think would take longer to close.
Does it ever get competitive within the team if like your two people are in the same vertical or one company does two things that could apply? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm fortunate right now where I'm at a company that really doesn't love the unhealthy competition. So luckily in my recent role, I didn't face a lot of that. I definitely got a lot of competition and having that pressure of having to do better than my peers in previous roles. How do you deal with that? There's times where I didn't deal with it very well because it's very exhausting on your mental health. But I think at the end of the day, like what I tell myself is like, my sales team is going to change. My career is going to change. My company is going to change. I'm not going to be with this peer probably in the next 6 or 12 months. Like, is this going to matter? At the end of the day, my numbers are the ones that matters. And this is a cliche saying, but the only person you're competing with yourself in sales is like yourself. So at the end of the day, that's kind of how I try to approach it. Is it hard? Yes, because in sales, it's like that one job where you're literally measured on one number, and that's the revenue you bring in or the revenue that you're maintaining. So if your number is lower, there's always that cause to compare, but try to tell myself to minimize it and make sure that when I'm choosing companies that's not an important characteristic that they lean into, and it's more collaboration. So I'm fortunate in my current role that's more focused on collaboration and helping each other than like beating each other out.
You talked a little bit about like bringing in revenue for the company and hitting a number. Like how does that actually work? Do you get paid off of the money that you bring in for the company, and what is the number that you're in charge of?
Yeah, so you are, to answer your first question. The number that I'm in charge of now is I have a quota for the half. So my quota is based on 6 months. My previous role, my quota was based on 3 months. And then when I first started sales, it was based on a monthly quota. So it can really range. I think as you go higher in sales, that number is projected on a longer basis because you're probably working more complex deals that close longer, yada, yada, yada. My quota right now for the half is almost $6 million, which is fun. What the way that I'm paid out on that, especially at I think most tech companies, we have what's called an OT, on target earnings. So your salary is based on two components: your base salary and then your commission. Base is always the same, or it tends to be the same and pretty much consistent with what your peers are making. And then obviously your commission is based on the money that you bring in the company, which is usually a percentage of whatever you're bringing in. And then oftentimes what companies do is the more you're closing for, let's say, that quarter, and the more that you're attaining, whether you're exceeding past quota, et cetera, that percentage can grow. It's usually called an accelerator. So it's all incentivized based, obviously. So it's you close more, the more you close, the more you make. At the end of the day, that's why sales is so great, because you can really dictate your salary in a way that you can't do in most careers.
If you hit your quota, I mean, is there any incentive to keep working once you hit that target?
Yeah, definitely. Because usually, I can't speak for all companies, but for the two that I've been at that are large kind of Fortune 500 companies, once you hit that target, that's when those accelerators kick in. So that larger percentage you make off of the revenue that you bring. And that's really where the real money comes in. And then that's where you can just, the more you close, the more you're making and the better that commission is. So there's definitely a huge incentive to keep going. I think the name of the game is once you hit quota, just like really, really like press your foot onto the gas pedal, because there's a lot more money to be made once you hit that 100%. But truly, there's really no hard ceiling. There's no like, okay, you've made X amount, you cannot make any more. That doesn't exist. So really, the more you close, you're going to be making money, and it's in your best interest to continue closing, which is how the company makes money. It's how they get their best sellers, because they just constantly want to add to that.
Yeah, I could see that's where the competitiveness could potentially come into play.
Oh yeah. And that's when really the competitiveness with yourself comes into play, because you start seeing what your potential could be. And I would say most salespeople, I think, would relate to this. Once you're at 100%, you're feeling really confident. You're probably going into other sales pitches or new customer meetings like a lot more confident, because there's a lot less on the line, but there's so much more to gain. And that's really where the job becomes so fun, because the pressure is gone, but there's still so much potential. And those are typically, like, I think, where a lot of people do their best work, because again, you take away the nerves and you just add all the confidence. It's such a big part of sales, and that's such a big part of communication, and that's going to show through your pitch, your customer meetings, if you're just trying to secure an upsell, whatever it is. It's definitely the fun part.
How do you stay confident? Like, let's say it's the beginning of your new half of the year, you have $0 in the bank. Like, are you giving yourself pep talks? Are you just trying to count the cash? What gets you going in the mornings?
I have definitely tried to give myself pep talks, which are very embarrassing. They've totally happened. It's never fun to like have closed a lot in one quarter and then come back to a zero. But I think what always helps is from like a morning ritual standpoint, love to like listen to a good positive TED talk. Those are always helpful. Work out in the morning, get the endorphin rush just from like a morning ritual. I think a lot of salespeople like to do that, just like go in with like kind of a straight mind. But really, I think what you have to remember in sales, especially, it's peaks and valleys. You're going to go through weeks or even months where you might not be closing, you might not be on your A game, but you have to know like your opportunity is coming. You just have to be patient. You have to work hard. If you continuously prospect and you continuously focus on increasing your sales skills, whether that's communication, whether that's perfecting your pitch, whether that's working and understanding like the technicalities and figuring out where, like, here are my strengths, but here are my areas of opportunity and where I can grow. And if you identify that and you work towards that, you will see success. Like, this is not a job where you can't learn the skills. They are, for the most part, soft skills that I think can be learned through observation, mentorship. You just have to be open to it. So I think if you're doing that, you can make it past like, you know, the not so great months, or if you're starting at zero. And if you have that mindset, that kind of helps me when I see like, oh, I'm not having the great month, or oh, I'm starting at zero again, like time to like redo this whole thing. You've done it before, like you can do it again.
You were mentioning like you like to kind of give yourself pep talk at the beginning of the day. So how do you structure your day?
It's changed throughout the years, I will say. So I try to start my mornings early. And the reason for that is your client meetings, like your sales meetings, are probably going to take place between the hours of 9 to 5, depending on where your clients are or your prospects are. And there's still a lot of admin work to be done that you can't do in a client meeting. So I try to do the bulk of that in the morning before any of my client meetings start at like 9 or 10, just so I kind of ease my mind into like work mode. But I'll say I start the day pretty early at like, wake up at 6, try to meditate. Still struggling with that, but I think every salesperson should try to meditate, because our brains are always going at like 80 billion miles per hour. Try to do my gratitude journal. It's a new thing that I adopted in 2020, just to stay grounded. Squeeze in like 40 to 50-minute workout, just again to feel like I've done something today. I'm getting endorphins. I've moved my body. And then I also try to listen to a podcast. And for me, I'm not someone who has to listen to a type of podcast. It doesn't have to be like an inspirational TED Talk. Like, I just want to listen to someone else's voice besides my own. So usually it'll be a news podcast, or even like something about health and wellness, because right now I'm working with a lot of health and wellness clients. So it helps me like learn a little bit about the industry from the B2C side. So I'll try to do that like right after my workout. And as I'm doing the podcast, eating my breakfast, I'll kind of ease into work. So it's like a nice and slow start. think the worst thing that anyone can do, like not specific to salespeople, is like rush into your morning. I think it just totally sets your day up for failure, at least for me. So if I'm getting my shit done, I feel really like if I feel like I've done my meditation, I've learned something in the podcast, and I've responded to client emails like before 10, that is a win. And that really sets myself up to like be positive, be present, and like bring my best self to these client meetings, because at the end of the day, it's sales. Like you have to be very social, even if you don't feel like it. And that helps me a lot. I do all of those things every day. Maybe not, but I try to at least, if I'm going to narrow it down to like 2 things, workout, meditation will do wonders.
And how long does the day go? Like you said, kind of 9 to 5 is your client window. Do you get to leave at 5, or do you have other stuff that keeps you at work afterwards?
So currently with my current job, because I'm working on a lot of like product pitches that have to be very customized, and it's very PowerPoint heavy. I don't get to end the day at 5. It's been a lot of 12-hour days, which is fun and not, I don't think, super normal in sales. I think like sales does have a lot more work-life balance than most careers. I think I'm in a current role where I'm still learning a lot. So kind of 9 to 5 is my client window time, but then like I would say 5 to like 6:30, sometimes 7 is prepping for tomorrow, or wrapping up any emails that I might have missed, prepping for any presentations the next day, and then doing any last minute admin work. So I'd give myself like an hour to 2 hours after.
How did you get into sales?
Yeah, funny story. I fell into sales completely on accident. I did not go to school for sales. I went to business school. I majored in operations and marketing. I think I really want to do advertising. And when I say advertising, I mean like the Mad Men, very sexy, fabulous advertising, because I was 20 and didn't know what I was doing yet. And I think I just wanted to be in like that kind of role, which is why I majored in marketing. So with all that said, looking at advertising roles, I applied to like so many jobs, mostly with the keywords marketing, advertising. I saw one for this particular company, really like this company, use their app all the time. And the position was advertising account executive. I did not know what account executive meant. I thought it was like to help them with advertising strategy, which is very, very stupid now that I look back on it, because it probably showed in the job description that I would be cold calling all day, which I did. Applied for the role, went through the entire interview process. And again, you'd think that I would start to realize it was a sales role. Still didn't. Got the job. I went to school in Boston. It was in New York. Moved to New York for the job. And the first day, I start to realize that I didn't know what I got myself into, because they were like, okay, you're going to get, a territory. You're going to be doing 80 cold calls a day. And I'm thinking to myself, is this like, am I supposed to be here right now? Like, is this really what I just signed up for? And it was. So please do your research before you apply for jobs when you're graduating, because or else you'll end up like me. And I started cold calling, and I hated it. I hated it for the first 6 months. I tried to quit multiple times. I even actually landed an offer with an advertising agency that was actually doing ad strategy, but ended up not taking it, because I think this is advice that I would give all young salespeople if they are ever interested or find themselves in this career like I did. I made it a point to make mentors very quickly early on. Even though I wasn't sure about sales, I latched on to sales managers I admired, top salespeople in the company, and made very good relationships with my directors. And because I did that, they really helped me see the potential of sales. And I think when I was trying to quit, I had a lot of important conversations with them that helped me understand like what I could actually potentially be doing. I think I was thinking, am I going to be cold calling till I'm 30? Like, I can't do this job. And I think they helped me lay out the map and the roadmap of what sales could be. And I think I leaned into mentoring and having myself be mentored a lot. So that's actually why I stayed in sales, because I think that's unique, where you can find a lot of mentorship, like mentors here that are willing to help you. Because salespeople at the end of the day are pretty social people. They want to help. They want to see their reps succeed. So that's how I found myself in sales. And that's kind of a little bit of the reasoning why I stayed in it and why I'm still in it 6 years later.
Yeah. So is it that you were mentioning the 6 month mark? That was when things sort of changed. Did the work also change, or was it just more the fact that you had these mentors that sort of outline like, hey, here could be your progression and here's what the role could actually be turning for you?
Yeah, so it was totally the latter. The role did not change at all. I was in that same role for 2 years until I got promoted into a more of an enterprise sales role. So the reason why I say 6 months is, to your point, that's really when I leaned into my mentors. And that's really when I had a mindset shift, when I decided, okay, I'm going to commit to this job. Like, if I'm going to stay in sales, I might as well be the best person here, or else I'm going to be miserable. If I'm not trying my hardest. So really at the 6 month mark, that's when I dedicated myself to, okay, let me start listening to recorded sales pitches of the top reps in the company. I would listen to these on subways when I was commuting. I would listen to my own recorded sales pitches at the gym, which is crazy because I don't think I would do that now. But I would listen to them. I would like literally think of 3 self-development areas that I was bad at, take it to my manager and have her coach me on these until my future sales pitches were better and I identified that I was actually improving. I started reading sales books, which again, I don't think I would probably do now, but was really determined to get better. And then the mentorship. I was meeting with not just my sales manager, but like 3 or 4 top reps in the company that I really, really admired, and they were killing it. And that's really where I wanted to be. I think through a combination of those factors, like that's why I even saw the success, because naturally I don't think I was a very good salesperson. I had no idea what I was doing. And that's how I continued to like push myself. It was really at that 6 month mark where I like made that mindset shift, did all the action. And then I think like maybe a year in, I was like, okay, I think I can do this like long term.
So it sounds like you weren't necessarily cut out to be a salesman, but you really grew into it and you leaned into it and you just worked to really improve it. So do you think like if someone wanted to be a salesman or saleswoman, do they have to have the natural chops, or can they learn it all kind of in the way you did?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So I think, short answer, I think if you want it bad enough, you can be a salesperson and you can be a pretty good one. I will add that I think there are going to be people that have extremely high EQs, extremely natural salesmanship qualities. Inevitably, those people are going to be good quickly. And I have friends like that who are just naturally so good at sales and succeeded really, really quickly. They're going to see fast success because, they have that built in their personality. Now, that being said, that wasn't me. I was not like, the idea of having to pressure someone or even advise someone to buy something from me that they might not have wanted was crazy to me, like so uncomfortable. If you told me as a senior in college that I would do that, I would be like, I would rather be a brain surgeon because I feel more comfortable operating on someone than doing that. But because I think I went through that mindset shift and I really pushed myself to go through that coaching, and that coaching, failing fast and practicing so much and learned it. I really do think anyone can do it, but it requires work. It doesn't just require a mindset shift. It requires like you to put in the hours of work. And if you're even, if your social skills or your sales skills are even, they lack even more than, for example, where I was, you're going to have to work harder. I had to work harder than a lot of my peers that were a little bit more naturally talented than I am. But I think hard work trumps talent any day. If you have both, great, like you're blessed. I'm jealous. But I do think that hard work will get you there if you want it.
Do you feel like you're able to turn like that sales brain off at the end of the day, or does it kind of extend to other parts of your life?
Yeah, so I'm at this interesting point in my career where I'm kind of pivoting into, like I mentioned earlier, more of an account management role. And this role is growing current clients that already pay, which is a very different skill set than new business acquisition, which is what usually account executives are doing. So I almost feel like I'm kind of beginning a new career right now, which has growing pains. And I have had mental breakdowns many times this month. So I think my next step is really mastering this role and like this different hemisphere of sales, for lack of a better word. And I want to get good at this because I think if you're good at new business acquisition and you're good at like the growing and upselling of current clients and dealing with all of the issues and troubleshooting, and it's honestly a lot more technical in a way that I've never had to be. Like I've had to develop a lot of hard skills that I wasn't interested in developing and I'm being forced to. It's fine. I think this is what my next step is. And hopefully from that, I want to continue doing this side of the business because I want to master this in a way that I think I've mastered like the other side. And then ideally, like I want to climb the sales ladder. I think my dream, I would love to be a CRO, like a chief revenue officer at a company one day. I love the idea of like finding sales orgs and improving them. I think it's an incredible, underrated career that gives you so many skills that cannot be taught until you are on the field doing the job. And I think I would love to develop more experience myself as a seller before coaching anyone. But like long-term plan, like CRO would be pretty cool. Maybe not at my current company because it's very large, but maybe at like a late stage startup type thing.
How does the career progression work? Is it usually the person who has the best numbers, or do they take into account some of the other qualities?
Yeah, so I think it depends on where you want to be. I think in sales, don't get me wrong, you can, if you're a salesperson, like you can go into marketing, you can go into like different parts of like a corporate organization, like any sort of function you want. But traditionally, I think salespeople tend to either go into higher level selling or sales management. If you want to go into higher level selling, your numbers are going to matter the most. That is going to be your primary evaluation, because that's what dictates your success and will probably dictate your future success because you want to keep selling and you want to keep selling to bigger companies. However, if you want to go into the management route, I think that's where a lot of other traits matter. So not just your numbers, but the way that you are working with your teammates, the way that you are mentoring other salespeople, the way that you're probably showing up to like executive meetings internally or externally, and the way you present yourself. And I think a lot more factors come into play with a less emphasis on just numbers. I don't think either path is easy. I don't think either path is like better or worse than the other. I think it's truly what you want and where your strengths lie. For me, I'm not attracted to the management side yet because personally, I don't think anyone should be a sales manager unless they have done many parts of sales themselves. And I have been managed by terrible managers who did not have sales experience, and it shows. So I think I've always been interested in just like leveling up in my sales game and selling. And I think eventually it would be cool to lead. But I'm not at that phase yet in my life.
One thing, Diane, we're curious about, the goal of our show is to learn about all sorts of careers and jobs. And I'm wondering, what are some jobs out there that you don't know much about that you'd like to hear more about?
Yeah, okay. I would love to learn more about a lot of these frontline workers. And obviously medical professionals are a huge part. I think we're a little bit more familiar of not what they do on a day-to-day, but like their holistic career. I would love to know just like the day-to-day of like people that have worked at USPS and like what they're doing. And I would love to know like their thought process of like what the operations look like in their job, what their day-to-day looks like what motivates them in the morning. I think it's such an incredible and underrated career. That's just one example. There's so many I can think of.
Awesome. Well, Diane, thank you so much for joining us on the Under the Hood podcast. You've been a fantastic guest, and it's been lovely learning more about what an account executive actually does.
Oh, it's been so lovely to be on the show. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks again for joining us on What the Fuck Do You Do with Travis Fox and Shrey Panda. If you enjoyed listening, please make sure to subscribe to us so you don't miss out on future episodes. And if you're interested in a job that you're curious about being featured on the show, check the link in the description and let us know. If you liked this episode, we hope you subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify and share the show with your friends. We really appreciate your support.